Welcome to Worthy the Podcast, where we have conversations about what it means to feel worthy and what happens when we don't. I'm your host, Jessica Raimondi. All right, welcome back to Worthy, everybody. So today is a special edition of Worthy, a special episode because it's Father's Day, and who better to have on this podcast than my papa, my dad, Peter Raimondi. Dad, welcome to Worthy. I'm going to introduce you formally, and then we can get into the deets, okay? So, Dad, Peter Raimondi is the founder and CEO of Dakota Wealth Management. You are a graduate of Boston University Law School and a member of the Massachusetts Bar, amongst many other things. And let's be serious, we could do an entire podcast off a lot of your accolades. But today we're going to focus on your biggest one, which is being a dad and bringing me into the world and raising me. No, I'm kidding. Tell us just like quickly for those that don't understand what a wealth management firm is, and Dakota itself, just can you give us a brief rundown?
Sure. Well, first, I'm honored to be on your podcast. Thank you for asking me.
I know. So cool.
Dakota is a wealth management firm. We manage about $7 billion for individuals, take care of their tax.
Total, like under management.
Under management, yeah. Their taxes, their estate planning, and all things that are financially relevant to an individual.
That's great. We're going to talk a little bit more about that, especially how it pertains to women.
Yeah.
So you help a lot of women as well.
Yep.
Great. And then what's cool about my dad, and we were actually just talking about this, I think yesterday or whatever, excuse me, is that he's got both sides of the brain. And you've been able to, so when you were kind of starting out and when you met Mom, you were actually an artist.
I was a photography and became a photography and film major at Massachusetts College of Art in the early 70s. But that's what I really wanted to be, was a fine art photographer.
And that's a thread that weaves through our family so deeply. Art, not only fine arts, you know, Uncle Donnie, your brother, your oldest brother is a very well-known sculptor.
Yep.
Painter, draws, is amazing. And then you're an incredible photographer. Actually, what was cool is when I was growing up, because you took a break from that to go into law, to go into taxes. Is that right?
Well, wealth management.
Wealth management, right. And yeah, so when I was growing up, actually, I had expressed interest in photography, and then it kind of like reignited that.
Right. Well, I always had my own darkroom, and I built one for you.
You did. Yeah, I think I went to Mass College of Art and took some classes, right? And then I loved it, and I would shoot. Still have the photographs of my friends and I trolloping around Harvard Square and like weird graveyards. And
yeah, a great outlet for creativity, and you were very good at it.
Thanks. Yeah, but you built this. So he built me a darkroom in my closet. Yep. The coolest thing, I used to listen to Sade and just develop my own film, which I can't believe you taught me to do that, or I learned to do that.
Yeah.
And then we had one in the our second place.
I had a darkroom really my whole life,
That's very
until
cool.
we moved down here.
So I think that's the interesting part. What I was getting to is that he's this beautiful artist, and you're an incredible photographer, and you actually teach some classes here locally at your community. And I hope that you're going to do more of that. But you also have this like very practical, mathematical, side of the brain, the right and left, and it's lonely up there, isn't it?
It can be lonely.
I mean, he's the guy that you want to like call, have a lifeline, like that show where we used to joke about like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and like who is your lifeline? It's Dad or it's Pete Raimondi. Everybody knows, all my friends know. Like you just have this ability to retain information like I've never known before, never seen before, and you read a lot, right?
Yes, I do. Thank you. Yeah. It's I'm just curious. That's what it comes down to. To me, a lot around intellect is curiosity. If a child is curious, that's usually a great sign they're going to have a high intellect. When, for me, the risk was always getting bored. My mind always has to be moving, Every morning I wake up and I have a routine where I do a crossword, the New York Times crossword. It's been probably 10 years that I've done that every morning.
And you do like every morning, day one.
Yep.
Yeah.
I play chess every morning with people online. I play a lot of word games. I mean, just it's rather than physical exercise, which I can't stand.
They weren't the generation for that.
I would say that I actually give my brain exercise every morning for 2 hours before I go off to work.
That's definitely a secret sauce of yours for sure. I think you're always doing mentally challenging things, always reading, always learning. But the ability to retain information.
Well, that's a gift.
It is a gift because I think only I retain what I'm really interested in.
Yeah, but I'm interested in so many things.
Right.
You know,
It's true.
It can be anything from nature to math to science to art. I can't explain where it comes from, but I'm just sort of, I have an insatiable curiosity to know how things work.
That's incredible.
To know what things mean, you know.
Which made you an incredible dad because you were incredibly hands-on. You were like on the floor with me, playing, building, creating these worlds. The best dad in the world to have during like project season, and when we were just talking about how we built the Golden Gate Bridge.
That's right.
I must have gotten an A+ on that. That was so good.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
It was so much fun. So that's where I want to kind of start, is just this dad role. What does it mean to you to be a father?
To be a teacher. Yeah. Obviously, when I met your sister, I was 18 and she was 7.
So let's back that up for a second.
So when I was 18, I had graduated high school and I went to a private art colony school for the summer up in Maine, in Hinckley, Maine. And it was very prestigious. I had never left the small town we grew up in. So I spent the summer up there honing photography, meeting other creative students from all around the country. I came back home and I had to pay my uncle back for lending me the money to go there. It was $500. It was a ton of money in 1973.
That is a lot of money.
And when I came home, I had to get a job right away to pay him back. And 2 or 3 weeks into that job, I met your mother. And she happened to be married with a 7-year-old daughter, which I found to be a bit of a hurdle, but not too much of a hurdle.
Just a hurdle, yeah.
And courted her in the car for 5 minutes twice a day when I dropped her off at work and picked her up. We all both worked at Avis Rent-A-Car. And we got married 3 years later, and the rest is history. As you say, it's been 53 years. But
yeah, you guys are coming up on your 50th wedding anniversary in August.
Yeah. And how we started and how that whole relationship started, it's amazing to think we're here.
Yeah.
But having met Beth at 7 years old, my responsibility...
And you were literally 18.
I was 18.
Yeah.
My responsibility was kind of immediate. What was I going to be to her? Hopefully her stepfather or her father. I did end up adopting her later in life. We had a very close, tight relationship, but it was grounded on my being her friend and her teacher and her guide and her mentor. And that's the role that I just naturally gravitated to. So when you were born was my first year of law school. So I was 25. I was present at your birth, which was a life-changing experience for any man to be present, obviously, at the birth of their children. And then it changed. I mean, my whole persona about you turned into more fear than it did being your teacher. You were an infant, Later in life, as you grew into a curious little kid, that's where it sparked that teacher in me. That, I read a lot of Eastern philosophy about the importance of the role of a teacher in one's life. And I just felt that was my responsibility. Yeah,
that's definitely a good point. I think being a teacher is such a great way to put it. I actually never thought of it that way, but you really are responsible I never thought about it as an answer, that you would say that. But it makes sense. And
well, hopefully I'll surprise you a lot during this next hour.
Like if you could possibly surprise me more. And so, a lot of people, I think, learn how they want to parent from what they saw or what they learned in their home. Was that true for you?
Exactly.
Or it was?
My father, well, both my mother and father, but I'll talk about my father. He was a quiet, gentle, kind man. One of the kindest people I've ever known in my life.
I think everybody can say that about Granddad.
Yeah, everyone that knew him loved him. But I had the good fortune of growing up with him, but also working with him from the time I was 18 till the time I graduated law school at 28. And I went to law school during the day, but worked with him in between classes and at night. And we spent a lot of time in the car together. And what was great about him is he was never this kind of a teacher. He was never saying, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
He led by example, and he led by being almost like an artist himself. I mean, he was a
hands-on worker. I mean,
yes. He owned an alarm company and was installing alarms and so forth, and taught me how to fix things, taught me how to use my hands in an artful, constructive way. And he would say, I'm doing this right now, and I want you to watch this, because when you do this, I want you to make it neat, and I want you to leave it in a good state for the next person who comes to work on it. Don't leave it a mess, because that's disrespectful to the next person who opens this case up and wants to work on it. I know.
But that's so something that you do. It's so, now that I'm thinking of it, I'm like, that's how you are with everything. And you know how I am very like all over the place.
Yeah.
I think you're very respectful like that.
He was enormously respectful of his presence in the world.
Yeah.
And the impact that we all have on other people.
Yeah.
You know, you leave a wake in this life, you know, whether you think so or not. You don't just walk through the world and not leave things behind you that other people have to pick up, whether it's bad feelings or bad energy, or good feelings, good energy, or legacy. You know, my father left a legacy of kindness and generosity, and he was a teacher just by being kind to my mother, loved my mother, adored my mother, and taught me how to be a man and a husband and a father.
That was something that I watched growing up that I don't think a ton of my friends had, or that or people, or you know, guys and girls in my life, having like parents with a pretty solid foundation that respected and loved each other, that were affectionate and loving towards each other, which Granny and Granddad were all the time. They were both very affectionate,
very demonstrative
people. Yeah, and I had that with you and Mom growing up. So that's where you got it. I mean, that's the model that was emulated for you.
That's right. That's what I want. I watched him with my mother, and I said, I want that in my life. You know, I want someone that I can adore, that I can touch, that's receptive, that is receptive to me, is caring back and forth. You know, they used to dance together in the house all the time. I mean, they had a date every Saturday night to go out dancing at the Officers Club. They would get all dressed up, and that would be, you know, my mother's big swan song for the week. My father.
There's romance, you know, and you and Mom have that a lot too. Yeah.
Very romantic.
Yeah. And I think that's special. I think that, I don't know, I that's what I want, you know, still now I want that.
I hope you always want that.
I will always want that. But it's funny because I don't find a lot of people talking about that. That's what they want. Nor did I see a lot of that in other homes growing up.
I don't think you see it very often in the world in general. The world can be a very harsh place, and people mask or hide their feelings very easily and very often. And that was never the case in my family. I was very, very fortunate to have an idyllic childhood. And I don't feel guilty about it, because I think it just helped me be a better person, but I never took it for granted that I grew up in a safe, loving home, and that I tried to extend that to our home. And I don't know, I think I was destined to have girls anyway. But
that's what I was going to say. I'm like, you grew up with 4 boys in the house, and you became a girl dad.
Yeah.
And so, what does that mean to you? Like, how do you think about, you know, obviously this podcast is about self-worth. We've talked a lot about worth and value, you know, as I've been going through this journey. But what is it like to be a dad, knowing they're responsible for kind of shaping and helping them daughters, especially, realize their worth and value?
Well, I think everybody says, you know, you wish you could kind of do it over again, knowing all the things I know now. Yeah. But especially with girls, you must instill a sense of pride, and that they're worthy, that they're important, that they should demand respect. I mean, young boys and grown boys can be very Neanderthal for most of their lives if they're not trained out of it. And girls become the victims of that at a young age. And I think it's very, the father wants to be the protector of the daughter. I mean, that's an old adage, of course, but there's a lot of truth to that. Little girls need to know that they have a protector. And
it's like none else. I think that gives me a sense of, I think that gives me a confidence that I don't even know that is seen from outside.
Yeah.
Like not that I haven't gone through terrible relationship experiences and whatnot, but I really haven't. It's like almost like it's a sense around me that I have that, already in my life.
Well, you had a million girlfriends growing up, and they all slept over the house all the time.
They did.
It's like our little 1,200 square foot apartment was filled with young girls for years, right from the time.
And you're
first grade.
definitely such an inspiration and father figure to a lot of my friends.
Well, I knew that some of them didn't have that, but
Sure.
even if they did, I just wanted to
Yeah.
be a resource for them, that they knew they could call me if they needed me, that they knew
They
that
still
I
do.
wasn't going to
Yeah.
well, and I'm happy they do, but I was never going to judge them like a parent. I was going to protect them or help educate them or just be there to fix something, It just gave me a lot of satisfaction. It's what my father did.
Yeah.
And my father was there for every neighbor, every person that needed him.
Yeah. What do you wish you, all right, let's start the other way. What are you most grateful that you got from your dad? For me, I'm sure maybe more than one thing. That's fine, but.
Kindness, generosity, the adoration of one's family, the gratefulness to not take life for granted in any way, to know that you're here to help, it's sort of very Buddhist, but to help alleviate the suffering if you can, a little bit.
Make the world a little better.
Just a little. I mean, you can't fix
Mission.
everything for anyone, but you can be there when someone needs. I want to be that person that you call when you're in trouble, and I want to know that I can call you if I am.
Totally. What do you wish you got more of from him?
Time.
I knew you were gonna say that. Yeah, I know. And it's just like that one resource we can't get back, right? Yeah. I know. But even your experience losing granddad, and I know that was tough in the end. Losing a parent at any age, is just heartbreaking. But watching you go through I wish I answered the call more. I wish I did that, has been a real teaching lesson for me too. To one of your biggest things, like put down your phone, like the presence.
Yeah.
And I don't live far, but I still don't live close. So it's like,
Right.
And even though I might not, feel like taking a drive, I'm still like, well, I have my parents, I'm so lucky to have them. Like go up for an afternoon, go up for a day. Like the time that's been on my mind a lot.
So I have a couple of rules when it comes to you.
Okay.
I run a very important business. I'm responsible to a lot of clients, many of them single women clients. And I can be in client meetings during the course of the day or negotiations to acquire, whatever. Mm-hmm. And when you text me or you call me, I get up, leave, and take the call.
I know. It makes me want to cry.
Well, there's going to be a time I won't be on the other end of the phone.
I know.
So
Why did you do this? We should have been talking about movies.
yeah.
Oh, I know.
So
Yeah. So you're going to answer the call. I'm just going to start calling on your Monday meetings.
you do.
I do.
So yeah, I just you and I have a long history of that.
We do. Dad, I need help.
Yeah.
Well, I also lived away from you guys for a while, and I was gone for almost 14
That was
years.
the hardest time with you. The hardest time in my life was having you in LA because you were so far away. I couldn't go run, to save you if I had to.
But I would call so dramatically.
You would call crying, and I couldn't understand a word you were saying, so I thought you were being slaughtered. That goes back to when you were very young. Crying in the crib. I thought there were gargoyles ripping you apart in your bedroom.
Yes.
But there's always a fear for me as a parent, and maybe most parents, there's always a fear that something harm is going to come to your child, and you do everything you can to protect that child. And I think where a lot of parents fail is they forget that part of that responsibility is to protect them emotionally, not just physically, but to protect them from emotional harm that they may not be ready or able to fend off. And some of that is...
I think that's the biggest one in a way, especially happening in adolescence and things like that. That emotional... that like life or death, and the boys come in, and the attraction comes in and the relationships come in. It's really...
I mean, I truly wanted to kill every boy that you were friendly with until later in life when you started to meet people that were
better men.
Yeah, that were better. Better people.
And you even befriended my first boyfriends back, the benign first boyfriend.
I absolutely I wanted to be, I wanted to be close to the men that you love.
And it's so interesting because...
But you made some horrible choices.
I did.
I mean, you made choices of people that I really, truly wished were not here.
And still do.
Yeah.
I know.
But you were going through your thing.
I was going through my thing, and I think it's weird, and I'm going to say this, and maybe some listeners can relate, and this has a lot to do with Worthy and, me really trying to figure out who I was, what I needed, without this perfect life that I had.
But I could never understand why you didn't feel worthy. And so I look back now and we talk about this.
And this will be a great segue actually into what I want to discuss a little bit too. But it was more like I didn't feel deserving of the life that we had. I don't know. It just was it was like my little brain got some message, and so I went out rebelling against it, which I think actually is pretty normal.
But do you think that came from the influences you had from friends or something that,
I think I was bullied.
You have a nice life. You don't know what it's like to have my life.
Yeah. So I was bullied young,
You were bullied because you were
elementary school.
Yeah.
Yes. And it made me ashamed of it in a way, which was ridiculous, or it made me want to disconnect, made you have you drop me off down the street because you had a nice car and I didn't want to show up in front of school in a nice car.
That. Well, look,
it's also about fitting in though, right?
That's not abnormal. There are a lot of children from very wealthy families who end up becoming drug addicts and committing suicide.
Of course. And by the way, we were not like over the top wealthy. No. We just had enough, you know what I mean? And we had a little bit more.
Well, I think we might have had just more than some other people that we lived.
I think people also think we were like way more wealthy than we were at the time. Yeah. But we did well. I mean, when we were going to well, and we also were stable. It was a stable home, and
that was probably the most wealthy we were wealthy in our stability and our home life and the love that the family had. And unfortunately, a lot of your friends and a lot of people we knew were coming from some less stable situation.
And then the people that I encountered that had something to say or bullied me, that, it makes sense. Like they were like, that was maybe something they wanted that they didn't
Well, don't you think bullying just comes from jealousy?
Well, it comes from a lack of worth and value, I think. If I feel, first of all, like you perfectly said about granddad and you, right? Like you're like, if you feel like happy to be here and happy to be in your body, like you want to, I'm so connected. That's how I feel. I do feel that way. But it makes you want to be better. It makes you want to help others. It makes you want to feel connected to others. Mm-hmm. Bullying is a way that we disconnect, right? It's a way to put you over here and me here and say that...
Well, don't you think the bully feels something good when they're bullying?
I wouldn't say, in my opinion, and we can get a psychologist on here at some point, but in my opinion, I don't think it's good. I think it's for a temporary relief from... Yeah.
It's like a high. It's like I'm getting some satisfaction out of making you feel bad.
I actually think it makes them feel worse because the guilt that happens when you do stuff like that is in my opinion, is you actually not even separating the person from you, but it's you separating yourself from the universe and from God and all of that. Like,
it's a pure lack of empathy.
Yeah, and and the soul within you, I think it's just such a disconnect, and I think you push yourself further and further away when you do that. And I think that's the knowing that makes the bullies crazy or makes people in those positions even feel worse in a way and want to do it.
And I know this might sound strange to you and you might not like this, but I care less about trying to analyze what goes through a bully's mind. Mm-hmm. I would much rather analyze what goes through a kind person's mind.
Yeah.
Because that's what I think one should aspire to.
Yeah.
I actually don't care about the negativity or the negative side. I just want to reinforce
Love that.
the positive side.
I love that. So going back to dad and fatherhood, was there anything that you would do different? Let's talk about me specifically, raising me.
Of course. Yeah. I would have given you more responsibility to fail. I would have actually maybe even set up situations where, safely you could fail. Or no.
Isn't that still an aspect of controlling the outcome? You see it? It's just like, you're the sweetest though.
Yeah. It's like, always wanting to protect your child means you don't let them trip and fall. You don't let them, but I now know how valuable it is to, I think I've said this many times to you, when you watch young parents with their kids and their kids are toddlers, learning how to walk and they fall all the time. The parents jump out of the seat, they pick them up.
I feel that way as an aunt.
And it's like, God, let them fall. When I was in Peru many years ago, we were in a marketplace and there was a mother and her toddler child laying out on the manta selling food.
Yeah.
And, we were talking to her and the child couldn't have been 2. And they had like a meat cleaver in their hand and he was pounding it into this empty metal pot, because it made this clanging sound that sounded good to him. It was like hitting on a drum. But I'm kidding. It was like a knife that was this long, like super sharp. I think she had just cut the head off the goat that she was selling. And he's sitting there and he's banging it into the pot. And
awesome.
And the 3 guys I was with were horrified, and they were telling her, like, you can't let him do that. And she looked over at the child, and she looked back at us and just continued to talk like there was nothing wrong with what was happening there. He was fine. He wasn't going to slice his finger up, and if he did, she would deal with it. And I thought, he clearly wasn't going to kill himself, but it was a dangerous situation. But I thought to myself right then, there was a certain amount of confidence that kids need to learn where the danger is and where the hot stove is and where the pain is, or they'll never learn it. They'll grow up and not know how to function in a world that can be very dangerous and can be very hard. So, move that down the road a bit and figure out that if I was to do anything different, I would have showed you ways to deal with failure.
Yeah.
Both in your own psyche, so to speak, but in your own life. You're not going to get every job. You're going to get fired. You're not going to get every guy. You're not going to have every relationship work out. And it's not the end of the world. It isn't.
And almost it's like it's empowering me to figure that out and kind of stand up after that.
As successful as I've been in my life, I've only been that successful because of the failures I've had.
Yeah. And I mean, did you ever think, we've talked about this a bit on Mom's episode too, and she said something very similar, obviously, when I asked what she would do different. But it's like, I think there's also a level of care. I mean, there was a level of financial protection to growing up and there was a level of, like not letting me fully, experience the consequences or whatever.
I don't know how any parent lets their child go homeless or lets their child not eat because they don't have any money or whatever. It's like, you can't do that.
I don't know. I know.
But there is a certain level of, hey kid, you're on your own on this. Yeah. Even though I have the money to rescue you, or even though I have the means to rescue you, I'm not going to do that because you need to understand what it's like to fall here.
Yeah, and
that's important.
It was because I think, like I was telling Mom too, it's like the message that I got was I can't do it on my own. I can't.
Yeah.
That was, again, I came into this world with this soul and this brain, and like this is how I interpret the world. It's not somebody else in this family could have been like, cool, got it, and moved on. And I just this is what I'm meant to learn, and that's why I'm doing this podcast, is because I think it's interesting to me that I somehow got that message, and
I think it's great.
And it wasn't, but then it empowered me later.
That it came out of suffering.
it came out of suffering and something, yeah, and feeling, even still, like I still have to remind myself like I can do things, and I'm not, I'm also the baby in the family too, so there was a lot of
Sort
just
of.
natural like over, caring and
Well, yeah. I mean,
protecting.
we had kind of two only children.
You
You know,
did.
Beth was 14 when you were born and
Yeah.
gone 3 years later.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tougher when you're the only child in the house because all
Mm-hmm.
the attention of the parents goes on you and to each other. And one of the things my father and mother taught me was if you're not your best friend
Mm-hmm.
with your spouse, then when the kids go, you've got nothing. And that's why there are so many divorces later in life.
Totally.
And he always taught me to make sure that you put your wife first, put your spouse first. She's, even over the kids,
You definitely did.
she's going to be there the rest of your life, and the kids will be gone, hopefully, with
Yeah.
their own lives.
For better or worse, that was definitely the message also I got growing up, which I actually now think is very cool.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I remember saying to you once during one of your crazy 16-year-old frenzies, I looked at you, and I probably screamed it at you, but I looked at you and I said, don't ever talk to my wife that way.
Oh, it made me want to throw a bench at you.
But I meant it. I don't care who
You
you
did.
were. You were my
It pissed
child, but
me
I don't
off
care
so
who you were.
much.
Don't ever talk to my wife that way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean now obviously now I get it and I respect it and I'm like, I want that.
It was a
I
great
go
line.
it was a great line. I want to just go back to something you said about confidence. So to me and most people that know you, you exude a pretty solid amount of confidence. You come off very assured, and it has now. Have you always been that way? Like
Yes.
you seem like you know your and we've talked about this. You know your sense of value and worth more so than a lot of people. It's not something you struggle with now, but like I want to know, was it all that way? Yeah.
So, yeah, I always felt loved and I always felt protected and taken care of within my family. Older brothers, parents who cared and all that stuff. So I didn't have that to worry about. But I had challenges. I was dealing with I was sick as a child twice with a hepatitis and a mononucleosis in the 4th grade and the 7th grade. My brother Randy and I both got hepatitis from contaminated shellfish, actually. And I was required to be in bed for 7 weeks at a time. So in the 4th grade and the 7th grade, I'm in my bedroom feeling
2 months.
perfectly fine after the first week. And I had to entertain myself. So there were baseball cards, of course. There were model cars. There were statistics that I would do, look out the window and track cars that would go by and categorize them as Chevy,
Who does
Ford,
that?
Dodge. And I would take this like live poll of the cars that are driving by, just to keep myself occupied. I just had to invent games to play, Army Men with elastic stuff.
That was my favorite.
And that sort of that creativity and creating a world for myself happened twice at very important times in my life. And it was really important to feed into that, right? So that continued later in life to the point where I just always felt that I don't know, I needed to make sure that I was surrounded by things that kept me interested, things that were creative, problems.
So it's like you
I could
built like
solve.
this trust with yourself, maybe, and like, and then you could rely on yourself.
Right.
Or does that resonate?
Yes.
Okay.
And that I could be my best friend, right? And then when I got my first job at 14 and I started to date girls at 14 and 15, I was troubled with bad skin as a teenager. And it got to the point where early on, I realized when you look in the mirror and you're 14 or 15, you're breaking out everywhere. And you want to go out with this girl, or you want to hang with the girls, you kind of look like a freak, and you're thinking to yourself, I'm never going to have a girlfriend. But I was funny and I was engaging and I had a decent personality. And so I knew the opportunity was there, but not if I look like this. So I looked in the mirror one day and I decided I can't see it. I don't know what this looks like. I can look in the mirror and see it, but when I walk outside and I'm with my friends, I can't see it, so I'm not going to let it bother me. And I decided I would never let the way I looked define who I was. And I used my own sense of humor and my own intellect or curiosity to be the attractive quality, and didn't rely on the way I dressed or the way my face looked or whatever. I just said, if I do that, I will stay in the house my entire childhood.
And so many people do.
I know.
And so many people struggle with it. That's pretty profound to kind of come to at a teenage age, at adolescent.
14.
Yeah, that is like, I don't think being a girl, I'm trying to think about it. Like I think mom let me stay home from school. Like if I had a giant pimple on my face.
Yeah. And I don't think my mother would have let me stay home from school.
Well, that's also something
I
to
think
it.
my mother was the kind of person who would have said, oh, it doesn't,
It doesn't look that bad.
Just get over it. You know, you're still a wonderful kid, all these things that parents say. But I remember literally saying, I'm not ever going to let it stand in my way.
I think that's a great little motto for life right now, too. It's very inspiring. So what would you say, if you could, the difference is between confidence and self-worth?
Well, it's a tough one, actually. It's probably a very narrow definition. I never really thought about self-worth much until you started talking about it, because I guess
A lot of people say that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess when you raised it, I'm like, well, that was never an issue for me. I always felt worthy of the life I had, or worthy of the family I had, or the wife I had. Just like you feel worthy of the fact that you're 5'9" and not 6'2". It's like, well, embrace it. That's what you are. You're 5'9". You can't spend your whole life saying, I wish I was taller. I don't wish I was anything other than I am.
I don't either anymore.
And if I wanted to be something I'm not, then I should strive to be that. So I don't understand why somebody would just spend the rest of their life lamenting that I'm not this, I could have been that. Mom said something profound to me a lot of times. She said something profound, but I came home from art school one day. I was halfway through my junior year at Mass College of Art. And I decided, after having a session with a very famous photographer who was critiquing my work, he basically told me, you are good enough to leave school right now and just shoot all day and be an artist. The only reason you're still in school is because you're afraid. You're afraid to go out and pursue this artistic talent you have. Kind of man up, go do it. You don't need to be.
Was he right?
What do you need a degree for? No. Right, you already know everything you need to know and you can see. So go out and do it. And I thought to myself, he's absolutely right. No one expected anything from me as long as I was still in school. I could still be a student.
I think a lot of people go through that.
Yeah, the real world was waiting for me, right?
We get lost even just now taking courses and doing things that we don't have to actually act and do. Yeah.
So I came home that day and I said to Mom, I don't think this is the life that I was 23 years old. I don't think this is the life for us. For me being an artist is going to create nothing but financial struggle and a lot of personal struggle in the family, because I'll be traveling a lot, I'll be out a lot. It's just, I wanted to be a photographer when I was a single person.
Yeah.
Now I have a child and a mortgage. It's not what I want. And she said, well, what if you could do anything and money was not an object, what would it be?
The worry of money, right? Yeah.
Right. And for some reason I said Atticus Finch, the attorney in To Kill a Mockingbird, Gregory Peck in the movie.
Of course.
And I said, I want to be that guy who saves the wrongly accused from the gallows, or the person who's in trouble, who comes up brilliantly with a soliloquy for the jury to get everyone to go like, wait a minute, he's right, and there was something about that character that I really aspired to be. So she said, well, why don't you go to law school? And I said, well, I haven't had an academic course in 7 years. And she said, that's not my problem, that's your problem. She said, listen, I don't want you to all of a sudden be 40 and have Beth, who would be 29, say to you one day, hey, Dad, if you could have been anything in the world, what would you have been?
And not be doing it.
And not be the person that you wanted to be. And have you tell her, oh, I would have much rather have been this. She goes, don't be that. Be what you want to be and, overcome every obstacle to achieve it. She really put it on me.
Well, she can do that. She really does. It doesn't.
There's no filter.
She has no filter, but it's also like a simplifying of it, but also like, because it is that simple. It may not be easy, but it is a simple decision.
She literally said, you not having any academic courses, that's not my problem. You just told me you want to be a lawyer. Go be a lawyer. Go figure it out. You're smart enough to do it. And the fact was, I was, and I made sure I did, but I didn't know that at the time. I didn't have the same confidence in myself. I had the self-worth, obviously.
Which is great, the foundation.
Yeah. So the confidence, well, wait a minute. I was the kid who had terrible skin, but I had girlfriends from the time I was 14. I mean, I never was without a girlfriend. Why? Well, it's because I didn't let these things get in my way.
So it's really a decision.
Your mother, she was married. That didn't get in my way.
As you said, it was a
hurdle.
A hurdle. But I think would you say that then confidence is almost like a choice and a skill
I think it's
set?
definitely a choice. Yeah. I mean, you can choose to say whatever the hurdles are, and there are tons of them for anything. Every day you have hurdles.
Yeah.
You make the choice to overcome those hurdles or not. I mean, talk to any accomplished athlete and they'll tell you the same thing.
Sure.
Any musician or artist, the struggles that they had to get to where they want to be or the goal or whatever that might be, never without struggle. Never.
Yeah, of course. Well, it's interesting because you said, deciding that you wanted to help people. And so much of what you do is now empowering people to, I think, especially, I've watched you over the years really help and empower women in your, not only in your companies, but as clients. And one of the things that I've watched you do too is to teach them, and I've learned too, and you've taught me about investing in themselves and learning to gain control and gain more wisdom and knowledge about their finances, maybe whether it be after a divorce or whether it be their and you have some beautiful clients who have their own careers, and you have beautiful clients that have come out of divorces, and I just think there's something really cool about that. If you could just elaborate a little bit on what do you think, like, women tend, when you've seen finances of all people, right, of all kind of from all different walks of life, and then the husband and the wife, and then the solo entrepreneur, and do you think there's something that women struggle with more than men when it comes to financial independence? Or
I think they cede control early on in the relationship and focus on rearing children or something else, or maybe their own career. But when it comes to finances, at least traditionally, I've been doing this for 43 years now. Most of my female clients who are single, they were divorced or widowed or never married.
Right.
In most cases, they struggle with ceding control for finances to their spouse. And that meant they don't
even see that. They're not even looking at it.
No, there's and first of all, there's an enormous amount of trust that oftentimes is misplaced.
Sure.
But
of course, especially that in older generations.
Yeah, and then when the spouse dies, they're left not understanding anything about where anything is or what to do, or worse, when they get divorced. So they're betrayed, they're crushed emotionally, and they have no idea how to handle the finances as well. So you have this like triple whammy of real negativity. And our relationship is one where, well, they can trust me. I have all the answers for them to help them and make sure that they now start to learn how to take care of these things. I don't do it for them. I do it with them.
So you literally are kind of like, this is what I'm doing today. This is the, as far as
why I'm doing it, and this is why you need to do this, and why you need to learn this. There's a real sense of empowerment. So more than 50% of Dakota are female, and about half of our
client-wise or
employees. We have 100 employees, and throughout my whole career, I've empowered women in my company to be advisors and to have meaningful positions and just to be employed and be functional and be happy.
Yeah.
But they all know, because we deal with money and we deal with protecting our clients' interests, they all know how important that is for even them. The youngest employee we have is 21, just graduated college. She's learning right away how important it is to understand finances. I mean, it's everything, right?
Yeah.
In many respects.
But you're saying, I think that word is understanding,
Empowerment, making sure that they understand
Mm-hmm.
the importance of not ceding the control away. You don't have to be the one to pay the bills. You don't have to be the one to make the money. You just have to understand where it is and what's happening and how functional it is, important it is to the success of your family. We could talk for hours about that.
Right. I was going to say that. Well, it's just that it's something that I always admired, and I think that you did a fairly good job with your daughters, just as far as like, hey, give me that graduation money. I'm going to show you what we can do with it, and putting it into.
Well, I always wish you were more interested.
I wasn't. That's the thing, and maybe it
Yeah.
was something I wish that you did do differently. Was kind of, if I'm saying that, I wish that we talked about money more. I wish we talked about that more. Yes, I wasn't interested.
You weren't interested.
But I wish it was somehow part of like.
So what you're really trying to say is you wish you were more interested in learning about.
Well,
money.
but I was a teenager. But I'm just saying, like, I didn't know anything about credit score. I didn't know anything about this. Yeah. So I mean, I wish I knew more earlier on. But I did. I mean, I handed you my high school graduation money.
We put it in Disney stock. It's still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So where does like with that? First of all, what is net worth? I know we talk about that because I love this play on words here, but with worthiness and whatnot. But how would you describe your net worth?
Well, net worth is the amount of assets you have. So your house, your bank account, your investment account, your 401k, your IRA. You add up all those things, and then you subtract from it your debt.
Okay.
Credit card debt, mortgage debt, car debt, all that kind of stuff, and that produces your net worth.
Okay.
Right? And some people have a negative net worth. They have more debt than they have assets, right?
Yeah. So for young people, young women especially, how early do you suggest investing in yourself or taking control? And when we say investing, that could be
putting $500 in an IRA. If you work at a job that has a 401k, you must max out the contributions to a 401k because your employer almost always will match that contribution. It's accumulating tax deferred until you take it out past age 70 or whatever. And for young people, it's very hard to put money away and think like, well, this is going to be for when I'm 50 or 60 or 70 because it's such an abstract thought that when you're 20 that you're going to be 70 one day. But as a 70-year-old person, I'm telling you, it happens overnight. It's so quick.
I know.
And we have children of clients and children of children of clients.
Yeah.
And no matter how, it's happening much more frequently now. 15 to 20 years old are in college. They're setting up IRAs. Their parents are encouraging them, and we're managing it for them. And we're saying, we just had one client have two 20-something-year-old graduates of college.
Yeah.
And they had, I think they put $5,000 in an account, not an IRA, a regular account for them. And we said, we'll talk to them and we'll tell them about what we're going to do and ask them what they want to invest in. So we gave them a list of the S&P 500 stocks and said, pick 5 companies that you relate to, that you like a Nike.
That's cool.
Or
again, empowering, right?
Yeah, exactly.
To be a part of the
and
process.
Choose these companies, and we're going to buy $1,000 worth of stock in each of these 5 companies that you want. So Google, Apple, Microsoft. And they did, and all of a sudden within a year they're watching their portfolios go up by $1,000.
It's a great idea.
And they get to understand that that's what investment and empowerment is. And if it's not in an IRA or a 401k, that's money they can actually use.
How do you think that plays in or supports one's sense of value or worth?
I think it gives them enormous independence. It should make them feel independent. It's like, this is mine. I did this, you know. I mean, you know, I've done it with you for a long time, but it's very empowering to see your money grow, to know that you have control over where your money is invested. I mean, some of my most successful clients are single women clients who have more money than they ever thought they would have at this point in their lives. And now they say, well, I don't have a whole lot, I don't have children, I don't have a whole lot of people I can give it to. I'd like to, well, let's talk about setting up a charitable foundation. Let's talk about you deciding where you want to give it away and make a difference in the world now while you're still alive, not wait.
Oh, love that. And you and mom are so wonderful at that. I think there's I think people, and we'll talk about this on another podcast, and we're going to wrap up here soon, but I think there's a whole really interesting topic about money and people's beliefs around, you know, money and their relationship with money. And I think that there's a sense of, and I think when I was growing up, it was like, if I have, then somebody doesn't have, you know what I mean? If I have too much, that means that somebody else won't do it. So it's like this kind of fear of like, that I started to learn about growing up. And I think some people, especially when they make money that they never had, right? And you're saying like, I don't know what to do with, it can almost affect their worth sometimes too. I don't know if you've ever had anybody feel like, oh, I shouldn't have this much.
Yeah. Especially children of clients oftentimes feel very unworthy of receiving a $5 million inheritance or endowment or of some kind. I've had, early on in my career, I was in my 30s, there was a CEO of a company in Massachusetts. He was probably worth about 10 or 12 million. It was a lot of money at the time. It was the 1980s. And I was doing his estate plan, and he had two sons, and they were both in college. And he said, I want to leave them each $1 million and then give the other $8 million away to charity. And that's how I was drafting his estate plan. And I said to him, and these are like 22-year-old kids or doctoral candidates. I mean, very intelligent, very grounded children.
Right, they weren't like out there in the wild.
No, they were. These kids were going to be doctors and you know, scientists. And I said, so just tell me how come you're not leaving them more? And he said, well, first of all, I didn't have anything, and you know, I put myself through school, and I became what I became just through hard work. And I want these kids to know that they need to build their own fortunes, and $1 million each is not a small amount of money.
Of course not.
And it will be held in trust for them until they reach 30 or 35 or whatever. But they'll know that there's that anchor there, that you know, they won't ever go broke, but that I want them to be their own person and to learn how to function in life on their own, and to know that this is there for them at some point, but that's it. And I want them to know that I gave the rest of it away. I want them to know that I helped other people with the wealth that I created, and I want them to learn to do the same.
Yeah, we talk.
Yeah, it was pretty powerful.
That's really powerful.
It changed the way I looked at everything.
Yeah, well, we talk a lot about that and what will happen later in life. It's just.
Well, that's what you
really
and your
powerful.
sister will do.
Yeah,
you will have to figure out how you're going to help change the lives of people.
I can't wait for that. I mean,
well, you're doing it now.
Such a gift, yeah. I think we're both doing it now in some way. Dad, this has been such a great conversation.
Don't we have another couple of hours to go?
Listen, he will be back. He could be here for 2 more hours. But we're gonna wrap up with kind of a final question. What do you think your superpower is as a dad?
I don't know. That's a tough one. Making you laugh. I think. Look, I had such a great childhood. I don't ever will never forget my childhood.
I know you won't.
The child inside of me still lives, and that child inside of me has always lived. So I always want to look at the world through the eyes of a child, you know, even though we don't have grandchildren, for example, and won't. I still want to be funny with you and play with you guys and always make fun of things and laugh. I mean, laughter,
it's insane.
You know, we have seen the humor in everything. Some of the
I think it's the most medicinal part of our family.
Some of the darkest moments we have found we're laughing, when we should be crying,
And we laugh. When we laugh,
it's hard. We laugh till
we're throwing up, crying.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody laughs harder, I feel like, than the four of us together.
And the way we make fun of each other, that's the funniest stuff we do, is when we mimic each other. So there's something magical about knowing that you always have that back door to laugh your way out of situations. And we've cried together, and we've been in very, I can say, well, I'm there to rescue you, or I'm there to,
I mean, you literally did carry me off the kitchen floor when I went through all that with Darren.
I would always do that.
Right. But there's also you went through things. It's just we've all been through ups and downs. I think that's a great superpower, actually, laughter. Our sense of humor is probably one of the things I'm most grateful for as a family.
Yeah, and it's a very serious part of our family. I mean, we're committed to it.
Yeah, non-negotiable, as is movies, and those play into our sense of humor as well.
Right, and last night we were watching Pretty Woman together, just you and me.
Yep.
And you were talking about being present and having your phone and so forth. And, you were on your phone once in a while.
Yes.
You were scrolling once in a while. You were answering a text or something.
Planning our Vegas trip, yes.
And then you got up to go, I don't know, get a cup of coffee or something. And I stopped the film and you went, Dad, it's okay. I've seen it 25 times. I know. And it's like, no, I need to stop it till you come back because I'm watching it with you. And I'm crying at scenes with you.
You're making sure I'm crying.
I want to have that connection with you when we're watching that scene. I want to know that you're sitting next to me seeing the same thing I'm seeing, so we can have that connection that's very special. Right. And it could very well be, Austin Powers that we're watching, Absolutely. So we're laughing. Whatever it is, I don't want the connection to be one of us is distracted.
Sure. And I've gotten better at that, I should say, I feel like. For the most
part. You could
still
still be a little better at it.
Always. Nothing's ever going to be fully enough.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your favorite thing about being a dad?
My favorite thing about being a dad?
Or has been, your favorite part about being a dad?
Is coming home and seeing you run to me, or even today, coming home and seeing you walk toward me to give me a hug when I see you. Yeah. There's something.
I think a lot of people feel that way when it's like the greeting of a child when they're home.
It just I light up when I see you.
What's the hardest part about being a dad?
When you go.
Oh, Dad is killing me. So I'm going to end this podcast in a different way that I usually do.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you, I don't think I'm going to get through this, no. But I want to tell you why I'm so grateful for you being my dad.
Okay. Good luck trying to get through that.
I'm sorry. I don't know why I did this. This is actually Kemper's idea.
That a girl, Kemp.
Oh my God.
Thanks.
No, I'm really lucky. I feel very lucky to have had a dad that is present in my life. That's kind of simple and bare bones there, but present, like we just said, in a way that was like he down on the ground with me, getting on my level, making me feel like the most important person in the world, even to this day, not to mention when I was a kid. And the desire to never let me fail, like, even though it may have hindered me in some ways, I think you and Mom, there wasn't even a sacrifice, because I think you were able to live both of these lives, that you both sides of the brain were honored in the life that you're living. But I don't know, I think you guys, you provided such stability in our home, and that is, all, not only financially and putting a roof over our heads and food on the table and things, but like you provided humor and love and respect to our mother, and you love, our mother in a way that will never leave me, will never not be a model of what I want in my life. And then I'm always know that I'm protected, and I'm always wanted somewhere.
Yeah.
And just for letting me honestly be, against some of your better judgment, just really embrace who I am and what I need, even if it doesn't align with your instincts or what you would want, which is AKA just basically living in this house, upstairs in this house where we are right now.
Yeah.
But for just, that letting me be me, and and riding this wave, this journey of life with me.
Well, I'm proud of you, though. You make me proud every day. You're trying. You're not sitting back and saying, well, I'm just going to sleep the day away. You're always trying to improve yourself. You're always trying to learn something new. You're always trying to take that next step, that next journey. And you don't sit in the same spot for 2 seconds. You're always on the move. I mean, I admire your willingness to take risks.
Thanks.
A lot of people don't do that. Not just women; they just don't do that. They're
funny. I don't even feel like they're the risks. They're taking risks. It's interesting.
Well, you always are. You're taking the risk that if what you're trying to do fails, you have this sense of like, am I a failure? There's a lot of emotional risk.
Yes, I don't even think of it though. I feel like I've gotten past those feelings, or it's just like I'm just doing what I really want to be doing. I think with the yoga, with this, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, but that's because you've always been that way. Yeah. I think I see lots of people in my profession that don't take risks, that earn all this money and don't spend a dime of it on themselves. They don't feel like they should. And it's like, my God, you worked your whole life for it. Why aren't you enjoying it? Fly first class instead of coach. I mean, you earned it. You don't owe it to anybody. You don't feel that. You embrace the things that you have. Yeah. You're not afraid to use and enjoy the things that you've earned. Mm-hmm.
True.
You're very respectful of the things you haven't earned. That's very important. You don't take for granted that, hey, Dad, can I have $20? And then you just go, you have your own $20, And you're very good with money. You're very respectful of money. And that's very important because that means you're obviously very respectful of yourself and the things around you. And you have great friends.
I do.
You have people who really love you, and obviously you have to love yourself to have great friends, and you have a stable of really great friends. I'm very proud of that, proud of you for that.
Thank you. I'm such a lucky girl in that way.
Yeah.
And this has just been so much fun. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being my dad. And you're the best. And I can't wait for you to come back. We have so many other topics.
So when's your next time?
I know. We have movies. We have music. We have more of what you do.
We could just do a podcast about the music and the connection you and I have about music.
That is one of my favorite parts of our relationship is our music.
Absolutely.
You've always been my muse and introducing me to all of the greats and just new people that nobody knows about. And we text song lyrics to each other and finish them. And it's just part of our relationship and part of our family, really.
Well, you and I have a very special connection around music that I don't have with anybody else.
I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, we've seen some pretty cool concerts. We just saw James Taylor in September again, and Van Morrison, Second Row.
One of the greatest moments of my life.
Recording of his album. Oh my God, for his re-record.
Yeah,
pretty great.
How many Neil Young concerts have we been to?
Oh my God, I don't know, 3 or 4 for sure. What do you want to say for Father's Day to the guys watching and listening?
Well, I congratulations on being a father. It's not an easy job, and make sure you stay present in the lives of your children for not just when they're 5, 6, 7, but when they're 55. I think they need you more as they become adults than when they were kids, and you should never forget how important you are in their lives later in life.
Could not agree more.
Yeah.
And happy Father's Day, everybody. Father's Day. I hope you enjoy your day. Thanks for listening, watching. See you on the next episode.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Worthy the Podcast. Our goal is to build a community, and we do that through people like you who listen, subscribe, and most importantly, share with someone you care about. Be sure to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening, as well as our YouTube channel. And if this episode resonated with you, leave a review. We want to hear from you. Thanks for being here, and remember, you've always been enough. Period. This podcast is meant to inspire and educate, but I'm not a licensed therapist or medical professional. Everything shared here is based on personal experience and perspective, so take what resonates and leave the rest.